This is part 6 of my Outlander Blood of My Blood Season 1 Episode 1 review. As always, if you are looking to avoid spoilers from the books or the TV show, please do keep on scrolling. So we left off part 5 in the aftermath of Dougal Mackenzie beating Malcolm Grant to a pulp and accusing him of stealing Ellen Mackenzie. Whether Dougal realizes it or not, this is actually a plan that was all put in motion by Colum earlier when he purposefully lit a fuse in Dougal and expected him to go do something stupid or get himself killed. We figure that out when Colum is having a conversation with Ned Gowan and asks him what would happen if Malcolm Grant did take Ellen and violate her in any way. And that's when Ned starts to figure out just how calculated a move this was on Colum's part. And this is when we as viewers start to realize that Colum has slowly slipped into the point of playing a dirty game because he has to. And his comments with Ellen earlier in the episode about how if Dougal were to become Laird, he would be cast out or essentially taken out by Dougal. I think that's when it hit him that he had to start playing a little dirtier if he wants to get anywhere. And so by doing this, he's made Dougal look bad. He's put the clan in a precarious situation with the Grants, and he's put himself in a position to fix it all with his brains. So when Ellen returns back to the castle after what I can only assume was a dreamy afternoon with her soon-to-be husband, she walks into this mess that her brothers have created. And I can only imagine that as someone in her position, walking in and seeing what a mess they've created in such a short amount of time would just infuriate her so much, because she's so much smarter than them and she has all the personality traits to be an excellent Laird, and she can't be. Instead, she has to be thrown into this mess by her brothers. And Dougal, I think, is portrayed perfectly here because he will never admit that he's the one that made a mistake. He instantly blames it on Ellen for not being around, and she holds her ground by not telling either of her brothers where she was, because that is not the point of what's happening here. The point is that Dougal has made an error and they now have to fix it and face the consequences. One thing I found really interesting about this whole conversation is that when Dougal starts yelling at Ellen, Ned is very quick to jump in and tell him not to yell at her. And you could read into that a number of ways. I think Dougal and Colum both firing back at him and saying that he is not their father and that he does not need to behave the same way towards Ellen as their father did, is their father wound speaking. But you're also left wondering, does he have a little crush on Ellen? Is there something else going on here where he feels the need to defend her so strongly? I think there's probably some hidden message behind that. I'm curious if they take it anywhere. Colum really does play Dougal like a fiddle here because he sets him up to walk into this trap where Ellen instantly is disappointed in him. And again, I think Sam Retford does a great job conveying the little boy in Dougal feeling like he's being scolded with just his eyes. Like as soon as Colum says, "We didn't defend your honor, you did this," his eyes flick to Colum and you can just see how scared he is. When Ellen refuses to tell them where she was and who she was with, she just with all her energy tells Colum that she does not owe him anything. And this is when you can see that she has such a fire and strength in her that is not normal for women of her time. But Colum also knows her, and he knows what she's been given her whole life from their father. It's everything he's lacked from their father. And he throws the conversation that he had with her earlier back in her face because she was looking out for Colum, wondering what would happen to him if Dougal became Laird and worrying that he would get thrown out. And that's the very thing that Colum threatens upon Ellen to gain power over her. And as he lays this all out, you can see the wheels turning in Dougal's head, that he had never thought about this before, but is starting to piece together that Colum is right. But what's so brilliant is that Ellen doesn't buy into that. And she immediately makes Colum feel like an idiot by telling him that if that's how he feels, she's fine with just letting everything end by the Grants coming and defeating them in their own home, and that she's not going to play dirty like that. I think she always has a way to disarm him. And I think that as smart as he thinks he is, she's always going to be smarter. And that's only reiterated in this flashback scene with Red Jacob, where she asks him straight up, who are you going to name as your successor? And he tells her that he doesn't have faith in either of his sons to take over as Laird, and that if she were a man, she would be perfect for it. And it's all the more heartbreaking for her, knowing that she's more than capable than either of her brothers, and the world is not ready for her to be that position. I really thought the acting in this scene after hearing that from her own father was perfect, because it summarizes, I think, how many women felt and continue to feel in scenarios like that. But I also think it really tees up that in Ellen's brain at this point in time, she is watching just how much her present life is going to change and very well may implode. And so when she is in her tub and she calls out Brian's name, to me, I think it's equal parts her love for him, but also her desire to escape the mess that she is currently living in and knows will come if the two of them continue to duke it out and one of them inevitably becomes the Laird. And so everything she had been trying to avoid, which was marriage as an escape unit, ends up being what happens here. Marriage for her is her escape. When we cut back to the conversation taking place with Ned, Dougal, and Colum, we hear Ned mention Alec. Alec is the man in the stables that we see in Outlander Season 1. He's also one of the people that reports what happens with Ellen and Brian when they run away. He tells Jamie about it in the books. So he's a little name drop from the books that I was excited to hear. And Ned is really realizing for the first time that Colum is serious when he says that his father is dead and he is going to rule in a very different way. And I think that he has no hesitation at this point to undo things that his father had implemented. And that's a whole other can of worms that Ned now has to deal with in regards to Colum. He's not a pliable person like I think he would have liked him to be. He's much more strong-willed at this point in the episode than when we first met him. And he was already pretty strong-willed at the beginning. When he lets the bird free and it lands on Ellen's windowsill, I liked to think that that was a sign that Ellen probably spent a lot of time in his office with that bird and the bird knew her, because we see it land right on the window here and fly away shortly thereafter. And Ellen sees it and realizes what Colum has done. All the more reason again for her to get out and leave with Brian. And it cuts to this scene here where we see the same bird perched up on these rocks in the future with Henry and Julia. Now this is the first time we see them in their own time and tee up their episode 2, where we get the explanation as to how they ended up in 1714. We also see Julia's wedding ring for the first time here and the blue gemstone that is in the setting. And this scene, which I already did a formal breakdown of, and you can go back and watch that on my page. Now, the second half of the scene that wasn't included in the promotional material includes Julia admitting that she is pregnant at this point. And while Henry believes it's a girl, she firmly believes it's a boy. And how crazy would it be if they've been teeing up this whole Faith storyline as them having a daughter, and then they switched it and it was a boy? Now, I was wrong in my predictions video. This crash did actually happen on the same day as the other scene. It's all the same car. I had some theories floating around and they were all disproven in this one scene. And miraculously, neither of them hit their head. They didn't get trapped in the car. Even the car went face first into a very shallow river. Some suspended reality here. But we can see how the two of them are trapped in the middle of the highlands together, soaking wet in a very rugged terrain, and they wander off trying to find somebody to help them. Just like in the trailer, this is when Julia wanders off and finds herself at Craignadoon, and we stay at the point of view of Henry when we hear Julia scream off camera. And Henry runs up to the top of the stone circles in search of her, and she at that point has disappeared back through the stones. Now the episode chooses not to show either of them actually traveling through or touching the stones, but we open episode 2 with Julia's POV. We do not get Henry's. But again, I think it's interesting how he looks at this stone. It is buzzing in the audio, and we get his point of view looking up at it, just like we did Claire's in season 1. And it's the perfect segue into episode 2, which really kind of dives into their relationship, which I was really pleasantly pleased with, but also leaves us all the more curious about Henry having done this before, because I think that might have legs, that theory. So let me know what you thought of episode 1, and I will see you in my episode 2 review.